Gimping ain't easy, but it's necessary. I be getting weary, cause shit be getting scary. But sit back, relax, and don't you dare worry, cause I be hitting wrongs with a righteous fury. Yes, sir, see, I am the only one. My name is Josh Dunn, gonna have some fun telling the truth y'all can't handle. I might raise a scandal as I dismantle the fake, make them quake and make them shake. I make you bend, but never will I make you break. Just chill, yo, and don't be frightened. Open that closed mind, it's time to get enlightened. Welcome back, folks, to Gimpin' Ain't Easy, Cause It Ain't, episode 12. I'm very happy to be back. I'm actually not feeling so hot today, but we missed 2 weeks because 1942 was busy with the Friends. Tell you what, let's make sure this doesn't happen next year. You sponsor me so I could pay 1942 $3,000 that he would have made from the Friends to stay on the show. We'll do the show twice a week. That's how it goes. We're brought to you this week, once again, as always, by Café Sempoal, where this week's feature book is Dagmar's Daughter by Kim, don't know how to pronounce this for sure, but I'm going to say Eklund, Kim Eklund. I really dig this book. The style, characters are great, so I'm actually pretty invested in what's happening. So please don't buy it for at least another week, because I want to know how this book ends. Gotta say, though, there's a little bit of false advertising, because the book is 200 pages long. The first 30 or so are about Dagmar's mother, the next 30 or so about Dagmar. I'm currently on page 85, and Dagmar's Daughter, the title of the book, has been introduced. Maybe the book should be called Dagmar's Family? We're also brought to you this week, once again, as always, by Charlie's Club, where most shots are $2.75 on Tuesdays. So, even if you get hammered and make some bad choices, at least you won't go broke doing so. Toddy is still barely able to work, but I think they took down the GoFundMe, so maybe leave some money at Charlie's for Todd. Hey Laura, that's what you should do. Maybe I'll show up at your work and run it on my tab. Something tells me you're not in the service industry, so maybe I'll just steal all the toilet seats. Have you ever tried to poop standing up? It's pretty hard. We're also brought to you this week by Nike brand t-shirts. Just do it? Nobody did it with me while I was wearing a Nike shirt. Welcome, folks. This is Gimpin' Ain't Easy, Cause It Ain't, episode 12. I'm here with a Halifax legend, Jorun Bombay. How you doing tonight, Joe?
Good. A little last minute that I got here because I almost forgot to be here because of Mark. But I'm here and we're ready.
Yeah. He didn't tell like you. I checked earlier on. He's like, oh yeah, Joe will be good. I'll send him. We were a little early.
I didn't see him the whole day at the cafe, which is kind of if I work with 4-hour intervals. So if somebody makes a plan with me, they got to tell me 4 hours before I get there. Otherwise, I completely forget because I got so many other things on the go. But he caught me just when I was eating cereal. So I was like, oh, okay, let's put the cereal in the fridge. Let's go. You know.
Damn, we interrupted your Lucky Charms to do this interview. My apologies.
My Raisin Bran.
Oh, damn, you're getting healthy now.
Oh, yeah.
Now. Yeah, Lucky Charms was in the 90s.
Mm.
Now we're getting on right. 2 scoops, baby. Yeah, so I kind of and what I do with these interviews is I kind of talk about how what people are up to and kind of like how they get started. So I'll start off with you like I do with most people. What was your childhood like?
You're gonna have to narrow it down a little bit.
Well, I assume that music played a big influence early on.
Oh yeah. I mean, music was always around. My family's from the Azores, so half of the family here didn't speak English. So we used to get our music from our our relatives, which was all Brazilian music. We didn't know any English music because my mom didn't speak English. My dad did, but he spoke French as well and spoke Portuguese. We were kids, so kids are kids, and whatever they're surrounded with is what they listen to. We weren't old enough to know to turn on a radio, so all we heard was what our friends were listening to and what was at home.
Yeah, I hadn't known anything about your background at all, and I was like that. You had some like good world music infusions from early on, right?
Oh yeah, the first probably about 7 years was just strictly Brazilian and Portuguese music. And with the odd time, like my older cousin listened to Kiss, but I didn't get that. So
right, yeah, those guys were scary, man.
Yeah. That went way over my head. So. Yeah, and you have to be a certain age to appreciate music. You can't be a 4-year-old having a record collection. No,
unless you're some little Doogie Howser genius for music or something. Right?
Yeah, the appreciation for music comes when you're closer to 10, and that's kind of when when I changed areas of in Halifax where I lived, there was that changed what I listened to. But up until probably about age 8, it was strictly a Brazilian type of stuff. Beat orientated stuff though. Yeah,
that's really cool because obviously that's what you ended up doing, and I could see the influence from there. Yeah. And so did you move to the Towers at a really young age?
We moved to the Towers on my brother's birthday, 1978. So
you'd have been about 6 or 7 or something, or
I would have been 7.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was May 31st, 1978. It was a culture shock because we had to leave one area, and all we knew was Brazilian music, and it was a pretty even though we weren't rich, the neighborhood around us was kind of working class, a little upper, though we weren't. But we're living in the basement of somebody else's place, and their daughter got married, and it's like y'all got to go. So we had to go to the North End because that's where everybody that didn't really have any money had to live there. And then when we moved there, that's when I found out way more about music than my small little bubble.
Right, and was it kind of really heavily funk and hip hop at that point?
What it was very okay. Just before we moved, Saturday Night Fever just came out. The movie.
Disco.
Disco was at its height, so disco was everywhere. So by the time we got to the North End, we got to hear the people that didn't like disco mixed with people that kind of liked disco but was more R&B. So that was the first. And then a lot of my friends that I hung out with, their parents, what they were listening to, when I went to my friends, 8 years old, hanging out with another 8-year-old, you go to their parents' place, you get introduced to their parents and you hang out at their place. And they're playing the Jackson 5.
Right.
Things like that.
Motown, yeah.
Yeah, Motown, Temptations, Casey and the Sunshine Band, things like that. So I got to be exposed to that. And that was 2 years before the first hip-hop record came out, so it was almost an introduction. It's like before you know hip-hop, you have to know where it came from. So this is where it came from. In retrospect, not that it happened that way, but in retrospect, I got to understand when the first hip-hop record came out because I was introduced to everything that they grabbed their influence from.
Right. And was that first album considered the one with Rapper's Delight on it?
It was Rapper's Delight. So I heard Rapper's Delight, and I heard Chic Good Times, where they got their source of music from. I heard them at the same time. And I thought Sugar Hill Gang was Chic under a different name.
Right.
Because it didn't, when it came out, Rapper's Delight was considered a disco record to everybody. Disco was so big, you don't get to see a new genre being born as soon as it gets born. You kind of wait for it to grow, and then you'll kind of look back and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, there's a
Yeah.
That was a genre. But when it first came out, it was just a really cool disco song.
Yeah, you probably weren't really fully cognizant of that genre shift till probably like 84 or so.
That's exactly what happened. 84 is when I really started to understand what was going on. It took a few years to see piles of more records coming out that were trying to sound like Sugar Hill or sounded better than Sugar Hill. So yeah, it didn't happen right away to think, oh, this is going to be a new music, because really before that, there was country records where people were rhyming, but they weren't rapping. But I don't know if you remember, if you've heard Big Irving, Big Fat Irving, the 142nd fastest gun in the West. You know, all that stuff. And there was a genre called CB rock, and it was just like guys that drove 18-wheelers listening to
that was trucker tunes.
Trucker tunes, and they'd be like, Breaker 19, is anybody there? Come on back, truckers, and talk to Teddy Bear. So rhyming was always around. So by the time Sugar Hill Gang came out with Rapper's Delight, it just kind of blended in with everything else, but they just did it better.
Right. And I mean, this is maybe a bit of a stretch too, but I even consider Bob Dylan's Subterranean Homesick Blues kind of a rap song.
Right. And
that's
there was a lot of rap-like stuff, but they didn't turn into the genre until Sugar Hill did it, and then every other person on that label started rhyming. But before then, it's not like it was the first time anybody rhymed, because you can go back to 1968, 1969. It was like a Pig Meat Markham had "Here Comes the Judge."
Okay, I don't know that one. Yeah.
And he was just like, order in the court now. Here comes the judge. Here comes the judge. And he's rhyming over a record. And this was like late 60s. But, it was just a really cool R&B blues tune. He wasn't singing. He was rapping, kind of,
That almost sounds like that would have influenced that cat Blowfly.
Exactly.
Yeah, because the way you were doing that made me think of that funny Blowfly song I heard a few years ago from like 1980 or something like that.
Yeah, and he was an R&B artist. He was he was under a different name before Blowfly. He was Clarence Reed.
Okay.
Clarence Reed. So when when the Blowfly thing did happen, it was more of a comedic thing. So when rapping came out and was starting to get popular, it was just natural for him to just hey, okay, let me jump on this type of thing. There was a lot of records that came out after Sugar Hill that were still considered R&B and not rap, even though the whole song they were rapping. Like, I don't know if you heard a Double Dutch Bus.
How's that go?
Feet, 5, 4, fum, I'll be dog, here we come. The Double Dutch Bus is on the street. You gotta get on your feet, move your feet. Bus fare, transfer. He's just like an older guy, black cowboy. The Double Dutch Bus coming down the street. And he's like half singing, half rapping.
And he was probably like riding the bus every day, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the inspiration came.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just guessing.
But he was a street dude.
Yeah.
And he did a song like that, even though people that listen to rap listen to it, but they never considered him a rapper. They loved his song, but like there was certain stuff that made rap.
Yeah.
And certain stuff that just, even though there was a rapper on an R&B song, they were like, okay, well, that's not technically, that's an artist in the studio doing that. He doesn't go out to the park in the Bronx and rap on the corner with everybody else. So there was a divide as far as age.
Right.
It had more to do with the age thing.
Rap was more the, kids in their 20-somethings around that time, right?
It was more like kids in their, 16 to 23.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, the high school generation.
Right.
Yeah. And so, when was it that you started, or decided you're like, fuck, I got to start making beats, man? Like, when did that hit you? About.
Where would that have been? Okay, Rapper's Delight came out in 79, and I heard it in 79. And around 84 is before I actually started to, I want to do this type of thing. The second phase of when this thing got better and bigger. And I was discussing this with somebody earlier today. But I was on a ski trip going to Martok in 1984. And I was getting bullied on the bus because I was the youngest one in the class. So by the time everybody reached 10 years old, and I graduated with everybody. I was still 9 years old.
Birthday in the sort of early fall you got? Or?
No, August.
Oh, right.
So by the time I was everybody else's age and school came in, everybody was going to get older than me anyway. So that was the easy target for everybody. So anyways, we're on a school bus trip, and somebody ahead of me passes me a tape as I'm getting like hit with bottles and stuff from the kids behind me. And he hands me this tape. And of course I want to forget what's going on. These people picking on me. So he's like, hand this tape down to the people behind you. So I'm listening on my Walkman. I just got a Sony Walkman that year. They just came out. So I took whatever tape I had. I probably had Hall & Oates or something that was big at the time.
Yep.
And this tape they gave to me had it was a BASF tape, BOSF tape.
Yep.
And written on it said Rico M Productions. And I didn't know what that meant, but it was written in graffiti style. So I put the tape in my Walkman. And I heard a group called the Disco 3, which later became the Fat Boys. But they weren't the Fat Boys yet. They were rhyming. They had a Spider-Man rhyme.
Oh, wow.
And I was a big fan of parody. So by the time I got to listen to about 30 seconds to about 45 seconds, and I clicked the tape off, and I said, there's no way in hell am I handing this tape to the people behind me.
Yeah.
I want to hear the rest of this tape. I was so blown away because Spider-Man was my favorite character of all the superheroes. And this rhyme about Spider-Man was not approved by Stan Lee and was a ghetto version of Spider-Man, and everything rhymed. It was so clever, punchlines. It was like reading a novel, but a guy reading it to you. But it was way more interesting. So I said, "Let me take this tape." I put it down my pants and waited, and I'm sweating. I'm like, "Oh, I hope these guys don't kick my ass."
Yeah.
And the guys ahead of me were like, "Did you hand the tape down?" I said, "Yeah, I handed it to those guys." And I pointed to my bullies. Like, they didn't give us nothing. He didn't give us nothing. And I showed him my head where I just got hit by those guys. And I'm like, yeah, they threatened to, hit me again if I was going to tell on them, but they got the tape. So I got these two guys to fight to buy me time. So by the time we go up the ski hill and on the ski lift, and I find a side path to just bury myself in the snow so nobody could find me, and I stood there with in the deep snow and ducked down with my snowsuit and put my head over my hood over to listen to the entire tape. Now, what the tape was a radio show in New York by legendary DJs, DJ Red Alert and Jazzy J from Africa Bambaata's crew, and they were on daytime radio playing and scratching and cutting up the newest records. But I didn't know what beat mixing was, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know what scratching was. But I knew they were doing something because parts would repeat, records would make sounds I never heard before, and they were doing it all live on the air. So that's when I said, this was so interesting. I don't know what they're doing, but I'm going to find out. And when I do find out, this is what I'm doing for life.
Wow, and I love that too, and that sort of speaks to me about how, and obviously, this wasn't rap proper as we know today, or like, offensive rap, but how rap being a bad influence on people, but for you, it got you, helped you get out of that bullying situation.
Well, yeah, and the other thing was, it broke a lot of stereotypes because moving in the North End, there was a big split on black and white, right?
And it's still kind of like that, right?
It is kind of like that, but it was a very different mentality then because it was fresh off of Africville.
Right.
So there was a lot of stereotypes. Oh, don't hang out with the black people. Like, white people would come to me that didn't like me anyways, and they'd try to get me in situations to get me into trouble with the other side. So when I heard rap music for the first time and how talented they were, and it blew me away, and how these guys sounded like your buddy. They weren't talking about guns. Everything they said was clever. Everything they said was about peace and stuff like that. And every artist at that time, there was no such thing as a white rapper then.
Right.
So it broke the stereotype of what everybody was talking about. The white kids in the neighborhood. Oh no, you don't want to talk to that guy. He'll get 15 guys after you. Blah 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 blah. You know, you want to avoid this person, whatever. And I'm new to the neighborhood. I don't know nothing. But as soon as I heard rap, I said, "This is what black music is. I don't need anybody else to tell me what these people are like. This tape is a great representation. They're super talented. They're friendly. They're like your buddy." You know,
yeah,
they're very interesting to listen to. They're clever. They're witty. They're like what you want in a friend anyway. So for me to have that tape, it was a replacement of having friends for a little while because I didn't get along with nobody in my school.
right.
You know, but and for a little while, when people knew I had that tape, I could tell who the smart people were in the class because they were like, "I got a tape too. You want to trade?" And I'm like, "You listen to rap too? Wow!" Because out of a class of 30,
Yeah,
there was probably 3 out of every 30 people in the class that listened to rap.
yeah,
It was still not known generally at that time.
yeah. This is like mid '80s, right? So it's
No,
like,
it was
not even.
it was just on the cusp of mid 80s, but still
Right.
early 80s.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild, and I love how that just, breaks down barriers and stereotypes, and you're like together.
Oh, it
listening
broke
to
down
this music.
so many barriers, like for real. Like, there was a point where I was at QEH, and this is just before Run DMC really blew up. We had a thing, and we had about 40 kids in our class, and we had to have a show and tell of just to get everybody to know each other in the class. And you had to go in front of the class, 40 kids, with a cassette, play your type of music, and explain it. And my tape from New York, I played them. And all the front row of the class gave me the plug their nose, like, turn that off.
Oh,
Ew.
wow.
And it was all middle class preppies.
Yeah,
And everybody that was down with the hip hop, they sat in the back. So I could know out of a class of 40 kids, probably about 4 people going, "You're doing the right thing, Joe. Watch, all these people will be buying rap a year from now.
Yeah.
Never mind about them holding their nose saying, this ain't music. This ain't music. You know, next year, watch." And exactly it happened. As soon as Run DMC walked this way, those same kids were like, yeah, wearing Run DMC shirts. Yeah, I was always down. You know?
yeah.
And
They weren't holding their nose anymore.
yeah, they weren't holding their nose anymore. But you got rap kind of in the early stages. It kind of, you got to see who was real and who was phony.
Yeah, yeah.
Early.
And then it becomes popular. It's a different thing, right? People are so
Yeah.
fickle and bandwagon, and that's just unfortunate part of human nature, I think,
Right.
quite often. So would you you must have had a hand at least in starting. Was there any hip hop scene in Halifax when you jumped in, or was it just you?
No. There was some kids on my block. Even before we heard the first rap record, my older brother had kids in his class that I would know from the neighborhood. When rap took off, those kids in his class that were one grade up from me, they gravitated to it quick. And sooner or later, not even much later, but probably around 1983, 1984, they already formed their own group. So they used to perform at the George Dixon Center. They did a show in the Commons once. And once I saw them, I figured, well, geez, because when a new genre comes out, you don't want to be the first guy that comes out, because when the first group was out in Halifax, they were called the Care Crew. I used to see everywhere on the desks, Care Crew sucks.
Oh shit!
You know, you were discouraged. Like, how dare you even try to rap? Melly Mel is the king. You don't try to be like that. You ain't Rick James. You're not this. Sit down. You know?
Right.
And the more shows they did, and people saw how talented they were, one by one, those people that were like, sit down, whatever, they were like, oh, okay. so it's cool. We can rap. We don't need to be we don't need to be 24 years old. We could be 13, And the other thing that pushed that was that tape that I got. There was a hit record on there that was unintentional. It was by a 14-year-old girl. Her name was Roxanne Shante.
Oh, yeah.
And she answered back another hit record, but her answer became bigger than the original. And she was 14. And when I got that tape, I was 14. So when I said, oh, but the guy
Sounds like your first hip-hop crush.
Well, but the thing was, it was more like the guy she dissed was like 19 and 20.
Right.
And I thought you had to be 19 and 20 before people take you serious. But she really rhymed circles around them. And when I found out she was only 14, I'm like, well, okay, so there's no age for this? Okay, that's all I need. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Okay, let me find out how scratching is done, because I'm getting turntables.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, you saw a 14-year-old girl rap, and you're like, fuck, I can do this.
But you don't understand. She was so good.
Yeah.
She used to beat guys in battles that were twice her age. People look like, oh, a cute 14-year-old girl, great novelty. No, she wasn't a novelty. She was just really talented early. So you got to hear her song, and you're blown away. You're like, oh, by the way, she did that all on the top of her head. And you're like, what? She was freestyling before there was a name for freestyling.
Yeah. She started doing it pretty much, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
She said she had a name for it. It was called the Nippy Russell syndrome, where you could just randomly rhyme stuff and never run out of gas.
Right, because Nippy Russell aren't exactly words, that kind of thing, and you just...
No, I think Nippy Russell was a person that was a personality that was always, doing the rhyming thing when the disc jockeys were like, hey, back on the air, we're gonna give you some flair, stay right there. When hip DJs were doing that stuff. I think it's based on that.
Cool.
I could be wrong, but
yeah. No, I thought it meant just like, because I heard like nippy, and I was like, oh, you just take words nippy, sippy, just for the sake of rhyme.
Oh, right? No.
Yeah.
It's a person.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. And so, do you think that world music from right on as a small child, did that have an influence in what you ended up doing? Or
yeah, it connected later on, because at the time when I bought my first sampler and I was looking through James Brown records and stuff like that, my dad was playing all our Brazilian music. And keep in mind, I listened to this stuff since I was 4.
Right.
But I didn't see how it would fit in. But when he plays it years later and there's an open drum break, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that has an open drum break. Oh, man, I can make use of that. So then I would go back. So it made the connection, because back then DJs always were trying to find records that had open drum breaks. It was the thing to do. To this day, a lot of DJs, hip-hop DJs, they collect records that have incredible drum solos.
Right.
And they would play them in the park, because that's how hip-hop really started. Even before there was rappers, it was DJs that were fed up with disco. They wanted to bring back the African drums, bring back the rhythm, not so much the sappy violins over disco.
Right.
They said, strip down everything and let's get back to Africa. Let's get those drums in the front. And how they got those drums? They went through every genre of music. Africa Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flash. They went through jazz records. They went through rock records. They went through world music. And they found parts of records that had open drums. They bought 2 copies of the records, marked the records. So when you play one and the rest of the song is about to come in, you already queued to play the beginning of the break again. And while that's playing, you rewind the other one silently to the beginning, and you just keep that break going in.
Wow.
That's how hip-hop really started.
So, like, the drum breaks from all this different stuff fused like that, and those were, like, the first beats?
Those were the first beats. Because keep in mind, when hip-hop started, it started in the Bronx. And it was at the time when the Bronx was early 70s. A lot of people didn't have anything. All they had was their records, their parents' collection. So a guy like Africa Bambaataa, who was originally a gang member, he took his his parents' records collection. He went to buy his own records, and he saw all the killings going on the street with all the gangs, because New York was littered with gangs at that time. It was hopeless. It was right after the Vietnam War, when the veterans came back, and there was no hope here. Like it was the dark 70s. So the thing that to get people to forget about, get their mind off stuff was watching DJs play out in the basketball courts. They bring out their sound system, they play records, but they didn't play what was on the radio, because what was on the radio was handpicked for you.
Right.
They were like, no, let's look for our own stuff. They would go look through the parents' collection. Okay, they got the Monkees here. Oh yeah, Mary has a drum break at the beginning. Okay, let me find another copy of that. And they would find like a crate, old milk crate, buy 2 copies of everything that had drum breaks on it, and really you got your drummer for the rest of the night. Yeah. And while they would play those breaks, there would be a guy on the mic who wasn't rapping right yet, but he had an echo machine, an echo chamber, and his job on the mic was basically to say, Darla, come to the front. Your father's at the door. He wants you home. Or can license plate number blah 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 move your car out the back. And it went from that to saying, so and so license number in the back, move your car, that's whack, please come back, don't cut the slack. And they would rhyme, but they weren't rhyming on beat. They were just rhyming because the DJs on the radio stations were rhyming anyway since the 50s, right? But they were doing it, and it wasn't until it grew to the point where they're saying lyrics from other songs, like what's the artist's name? Bill Withers had a song, "Kissing My Love." It was a hit record that he had. But in the middle of the song, he's like, no, what did he say? Put your foot on tap your foot on the rhythm and pat, and please don't stop. Put your feet on the rock. Pat your feet on the rhythm and don't stop. Put your feet on the rock. And that's his song. He did that, right? Yeah. And people, while they're waiting for the DJ to cue the next thing and the drum is still playing, they would go, pat your foot on the rhythm and rock your rock, don't stop. Put your feet on the rock. Pat your feet on the rhythm and rock your rock, don't stop. And they would say that, even though that's not their lyric. And they would grab a bunch of other sources like that, sew them together, memorize them of other people's songs, and say other people's songs, really. And that was pretty much the start of them saying, okay, well, this sounds good. Maybe if we write our own stuff.
Yeah, I love that, man. Like, just the whole etymology of that, like from starting off with like the MC is basically the master of ceremonies, like managing the park and the people there,
right? To
like taking that and from stuff that they heard from other records to make it more rhythmic,
right?
And then to doing their own things and lyrics. Yeah, that's really fascinating. I dig that.
Even on blaxploitation movies, there was, I can't remember the name of the movie exactly, but there was one thing where they were in a barber shop, and the guy was just like, just jive talk and making everybody in the room laugh, and he was like, I'm Imp the Dimp, the ladies pimp, the women fight for my delight, 'cause I'm right. And it was like, oh, and that became a rhyme on Rapper's Delight.
Yeah.
And people don't know that's from an actual movie. He says, 'cause I'm Imp the Dimp, the ladies pimp, the women fight for my delight, 'cause I'm the Grandmaster with the 3 MCs. But that up until the Grandmaster with the 3 MCs, before that, everything he said was right off of a movie. He just said it on beat.
Right.
So it was you plucking away at pulp culture. You could even say something that you heard in a TV commercial for cereal and put that in there and repeat that, but say it on a rhyme. And within a rhyme, you rapped something, it's slinky, to go to the blaxploitation movie thing, to the Bill Withers, pat your foot on the rhythm and don't stop. But if you don't know where those sources come from, you're looking at this guy like, wow, this guy's good. Right. But all he's doing is plucking out things he's heard on Saturday morning cartoons where he heard somebody rhyme 2 lyrics. He's like, yeah, that's good. Let me write that down. Let me link that with that the Frosty whatever commercial, those 2 lines. Let me say the Bill Withers thing right here. Let me Imp the Dimp, the ladies pimp from that blaxploitation movie. Then I go back into the Slinky thing, and that's what I'm going to say on the mic tonight.
Right.
And that's basically how it pretty much started. The rapping part started.
Right. So it sounds to me like, when you were influenced a lot by that stuff as opposed to like local music that would have been happening in Halifax at the time.
The local scene, like even before rap came out, I
Right.
couldn't even recall any local bands.
Yeah, that's a good point. Was there? I mean, there was like April Wine or something, right?
There was Anne Murray, but she wasn't even on my radar. I knew she was out there because she had a #1 hit.
Right.
But I wasn't trying to hear that because I couldn't relate to it. It was kind of out of my interest spectrum.
Yeah.
I knew what I liked, and for me, it had to be rhythmic because based on the Brazilian stuff I listened to, and it had to be interesting. Because as a kid, you want to laugh, you want to be entertained, right? If you're just listening to somebody sing, it's just like, okay, yeah, you could sing, but how am I entertained by this?
Right, and it's there's not much showmanship, and it can be kind of melancholy, right?
Right, and the other thing that a lot of people don't remember from that time, I didn't actually see any of these rappers' photographs or videos until about 1984.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know rappers I didn't know Sugar Hill Gang looked like until their career was over.
Right.
So I just had in my mind what these guys may look like. At first, when I first heard them, I didn't even know they were black.
Wow.
Because to me, I was too young to know what a white artist sound like. I didn't know Steve Miller was white.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't see you, I couldn't picture what you look like singing.
No, that's a kid like going in cold like that would not have the sense of, this is a black voice or this is a white voice or what have you.
What makes a black voice, what makes a white voice when you're a kid? I mean, you can there's stuff you can base it on now if you heard it, but as a kid, you don't know. What you kid?
No,
you don't know
because you haven't heard all this other stuff to compare it to.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All you know is if something is rhythmic, you're like, okay, if it's really beat orientated, it might be R&B, so the artist might be black. If there's a lot of heavy guitar, it's probably white, but then you could be still wrong.
Totally. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and then just as really funny aside to that, I remember this black guy comes out on one of those silly American Idol shows or whatever, and everybody's expecting some kind of hip hop or something like that, and he busts out into classic country songs.
There you go.
Right, and
Right.
did an awesome job.
Right.
Yeah. So I was curious, like just for more locally for a little bit, like when would you say that hip hop in Halifax was at its strongest or at its weakest?
It's in waves. It's in waves. There was a time where probably around 1985, and I would say 1985 because once we had a independent hip hop record store on Gottingen Street, right at the foot of Kennard Street. It was called Third World Records, a place where you could actually go and buy rap records before rap really blew up. So you got to really know your shit there, Once that happened, then groups started coming out and performing outside. And there was where's the place now? There's these new condos that are just built on Gottingen Street. I don't know if you saw them. They got that computer place there now and stuff.
Oh yeah, is that a little bit south where Slip Disc used to be that time?
No. It's close to the square.
Okay.
Yeah, right across from where the Manor is.
Oh wow.
There's a whole bunch of condos there now, but before that there was what was that? It was like the Dominion, I think it was, or Sobeys, or Food. It was Foodland. In the parking lot of Foodland, they used to set up a stage there, and just a little further down from there, right on the corner before the next street turns, there was a club called Club 55, and they had rap contests there, and those started around 1986.
Wow.
So I used to go with a friend of mine, Fizz, from Universal Soul, because I hung out with him for the longest time, way before music. We used to go play Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like we go back, and there was two members of Universal Soul, which was a local group in Halifax. Two members, David Adikoyote.
Yeah, I know him fairly well.
Yeah, so I knew those guys since I was 8. So we would cross paths eventually, and they'd be like, "Do you know there's a rap contest, or do you know there's a rap show going on tonight at the gym?" I'm like, really? Okay, let's go check it out. And we would go, and see who would later become MCJ and Cool G. But they were a group called you're familiar with MCJ and Cool G. They were on Capitol Records. They were the first major artists signed in hip hop outside that came from Halifax on a major label. That happened in 1989.
Okay.
But if you look it up on Discogs, you would see they're on Capitol Records, same label as the Beastie Boys and all those guys. And they grew up in the Square, and they were my older brother's class. But anyways, before then, they were in a group called The New Beginning. And they were a little older than I was, probably about by 3 or 4 years old. So we would go see those guys. And they incorporated R&B and rap into their stuff. But they were still very street.
Right.
And so they would sing in the choruses, but they would rap. And everybody played a part. There was probably 6 members. One guy was a dancer. One guy played the piano, the keyboard or whatever, the sample keyboard. Another guy was a DJ. There was 3 guys rapping, each one all dressed the same, matching jackets and everything with their names on the back. It was very organized. I mean,
They're
rappers,
very professional.
They were very professional. They were more like the Temptations.
Wow.
Like rappers now, when they go on stage, I don't go to a lot of rap shows now because everybody dresses differently, and you can kind of tell on stage who the leader is and who the weak guy is.
Right.
But when you're all dressed the same and you're all working together, you're all seen as one.
Yeah.
And so when rap was in its early stages, everybody was all about, let's get those matching varsity jackets with our group name initials on the side, so we're all synchronized. When the chorus comes, we all step back the same time, put our hand out like this, point to the DJ, leave our hand out, and he does his DJing thing. Everything was all choreographed.
Yeah.
So me going to those shows, that was to see everybody so professional and having fun. That was kind of the push to say, all right, I think we can do something like this.
Yeah, this is something to take seriously, because what a fucking show, and all the different musical elements and the show. I mean, you got dancers doing it, and they're all in their matching outfits.
Right, and nobody was a weak link. Nobody was a weak link.
Yeah. It's a well-oiled machine.
Right, because now a lot of people let your friend in the group because he's a friend. He does not necessarily talented, and then groups break up because oh yeah, but you let him in the group because he's your friend, but he doesn't really do anything.
Right.
Back then, no offense, if you're not talented, you can watch us from the crowd. Yeah. I know you're my homie, but you're not a musician. Stay in the crowd, and that's how they handle it. They took their musicianship very seriously in the beginning.
No, and I mean, I think that's the way to do it too, because I mean, everybody's even more sensitive nowadays.
But, yeah.
But I mean, if it's not good for I mean, it's one thing maybe if they're the financier or something like that,
right?
Because what can you do? But yeah. So that's because I imagine your style and influence has probably changed quite a bit over the years too, right? Because I can't imagine that, and I mean, I might be, I shouldn't speak for you, I suppose, but I can't imagine that much of modern hip hop contemporary stuff is influencing you nowadays. Would it be?
I kind of lost interest sometime in the 90s, only because the 80s were so fun. All the bad stuff in the 80s was hidden from us as kids.
Right.
And nobody was rapping really about violence and guns. As soon as that came into the forefront, I knew that I wasn't going to like it. Now, keep in mind, when the first group that really broke through with the violent stuff, NWA, yeah. I did like them.
And yeah, I'm a huge fan. And I love Eazy-E. But
right.
That's me.
And I did too. Eazy put out Eazy Does It EP before NWA's album came out.
Yeah, I
bought all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just when I saw their influence on the people around me trying to act like them when they were the nerd in the class, and all of a sudden you're rapping about guns, that's what I didn't like. It's like, why are you talking about guns? But that's what's in style. You ain't got a gun.
Yeah.
You get your ass kicked every day at school. Why are you trying to rap? Be real. Come on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, be rapping about pencils, motherfucker.
Right.
You know?
Rap what you are, you know? And the more that started and I say not influencing, infecting people, and people were taking their gangster image too seriously.
Right.
I wanted out. And right around that time that happened, MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice came out. And I thought rap was over. I said, okay, well, now it's the same thing that happened to jazz, the same thing that happened to rock and roll. It just happened to hip hop now. It's not ours anymore. Okay,
Right.
I'm done. And I walked away. I walked away for about a year thinking that like it was completely over. But then there was this resurgence that happened with Karis One throwing PM Dunn off the stage.
Okay.
You know, and saying, we're not letting these pop people take rap away. No, not yet. So there was people that actually like kicked these people out of their careers. Suge Knight hung Vanilla Ice off a balcony.
Yeah.
You know, there was people that were going to hold on to rap a little longer and like, no, we're not giving it to you guys. Sorry, you know. And that kind of, when that happened, it came out onto the music, and I kind of got introduced again because the music wasn't sappy anymore. Now, they were still rapping about violence,
I was just
but the
gonna go-
beats were better. They weren't too polished. Because my problem with when Vanilla Ice and Hammer came out was it was too clean. I'm not talking about the subject matter.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the beats
Sound.
were too clean.
Yeah.
I like dusty records. The snare got to sound weird, and everything is so sterile.
Yeah.
And it sound like you can make it at home on a little calculator. It's like, nah, that's not where it came from. Nah, I can't really. It's not rap anymore. Now it's just like pop, you know?
Right, and like I don't know specifically to your taste, but like to my tastes, like yes, you know, like Tupac shit is all about fucking gang shit, right?
Right.
But I think it sounds really fucking cool. A lot of it, at least, you know.
Yeah.
That's me, you know, like Dr. Dre beats, you know.
Right. I was never really into Tupac. I mean, I did hear I see the videos and stuff like that, and the thing is, he didn't really blow up until he died, because
That's right.
out of all the artists I ever worked with in Halifax, nobody, and this is so weird, and I bring this up and people get uncomfortable about it, but none of these people owned a Tupac record.
Right.
Aside from I Get Around, which was a really good song, you know, but I didn't know anybody that religiously collected his stuff until he died. The same thing kind of with Biggie.
Yeah.
I didn't really know too many people that had a lot of Biggie records, because our influence in here in Halifax was more not what was pop or popular. It was more what was simmering underneath.
And
there was more people that had J. Rue the Damager records than Biggie or Tupac.
Right, and was there some of that? And I mean, this is maybe a little earlier in the '90s, but I like to call it like hippie hop, like De La Soul and Arrested Development, The
there
Far
was a
Side.
lot of that, and a part of the reason that all that stuff was popular here was we had the right DJs at CKDU
Right.
pushing that stuff and saying, we'll play NWA, but we're not going to play that guy that tries to sound like NWA, and there's a limit. So there was, we even did a gig around then where we just had like a fundraiser in North Street Church for CKDU, and we had a poster saying, you know, CKDU funding drive, blah 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 blah, and we had a big list on the poster of stuff we would not play, and it was no Hammer, no Vanilla Ice, no Betty Boop, no Gerardo or whatever his name was. The guy is like he was kind of like a spin-off of Vanilla Ice.
Oh, jeez.
But we made a big list, and we were just very clear. It's like, if you come to hear any of that stuff, we're letting you know we're not playing that. And we would keep the tradition of, we would play some jazz records that had breaks in between rap records. Like, we kept it as real to the origin as possible. And we held it on for a long time, at least for 2 generations of new artists coming out. But then after that, we just didn't have the time to kind of hold things down, because life catches up to you. People have kids or whatever, and just that kind of let everything else flood in.
Well, and I even, like, and again, this is my opinion, but I even think rap got worse even, because it's not really that gangsta anymore. Like, there's a little bit of that, but it's all pop music now.
Yeah,
with
it
like
is.
auto-tunes beats and stuff.
And they're rapping about drinking cough syrup to get high and things like that. Like,
Oh yeah, Texas tea.
yeah, so
Yeah.
like it's stuff like, and I don't listen to it because I don't like the beats anyways.
No.
But I can't relate. Like, I've never been a person to be an extremist. Like, I understand some people smoke weed. I smoked weed like a very, very short time,
Yeah.
but I got bored with it, and it was just not my thing. I never did pills, never did coke. Everything that people glorify, and it's like, how do you expect me to relate to you when this makes no sense to me?
Yeah, if that's not part of your life, how's
Yeah.
that gonna?
And not only that, you can influence me. I'm not an person that's influenced by what you say to do what you do. Not at my age,
No.
right? So I was lucky to be raised at the time that I was, when I could be influenced to stuff. The people that were talking to me in music were just good people,
Yeah.
responsible at least.
No, that's really cool, I find. And so I was just gonna ask too, like, more about, and I mean, because I asked myself this question too, like, just being an artist, like, based out of Halifax, does that just, like, and I mean, and even just like going in the cafe and seeing like all these people just like struggling to survive, does that kind of wear on you at times?
Struggling to survive as far as music, or just in general?
Well, both, but in general, yeah.
That was always around though. Like, even,
Yeah.
but when I first moved here, like, we used to see people sleeping in the parking lot behind the towers. Me as a kid, along with some other friends of mine, we would bring out a soccer ball and we'd play soccer with the homeless guys.
Yeah, that's
cool.
cool.
Because they were part of what was going on around. We didn't see them like, oh, those are the bums. We would just be like, hey, you guys, if you're not too drunk, you guys want to play soccer with us? And they would play, and we would treat them like as if they were our age, And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, good game, we go. So maybe our minds were just somewhere different then. But, I mean, like, now there's bigger problems. Like, those guys were just homeless.
Well, that's it, right?
That was it.
Those bad drugs weren't really out as much back
Right.
then,
I
were
mean,
they?
they were drinking Lysol,
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. But I didn't know their background. I didn't know what led them to there. But they weren't doing anything that was going to make them go and hurt kids.
Yep, that's right. Whereas, nowadays, and I mean, 'cause they even got those, like, super fentanyls now that you can die, like, accidentally because
Right.
they're too fucking strong,
I lived in this neighborhood all my life, right?
Yeah, me
And
too, pretty much.
I've
Yeah.
only got stuck up once. And it was by somebody I used to babysit. In the middle of getting stuck up, it's like, oh, shit, it's Joe.
Yeah.
So I've been here long enough to know, like, I'm not really that threatened by the neighborhood. I mean, they're like, so to see a lot of poor people come in and stuff like that, like, could be their life choices. I don't know. They could not even be from here.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hard thing to answer because I've been here so long.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing faces I don't know, so I don't know their story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess me thinking of it more as like not like against those people or being scared of those people or that kind of thing, just seeing how much they're struggling and feeling that sucks. Those people, you know what I mean? That they just don't, have a place to live and
Right.
and aren't like, eating well and all that. And just wouldn't it be better, And then, I find it seems, at least to me, to get more of a mental illness kind of vibe every year. There seems to be a greater degree of that.
Yeah, it could be. But like with some people, when I talk to them, I get to know, what they're about.
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to get their story a little bit before I not make a judgment, but before I kind of come to somewhat of a conclusion of what the possibility of their position. Like, if you're young and you're 19 and you're homeless, is different than somebody who's like 45 and homeless.
Yeah,
the
way
reasons are different.
Yeah.
One guy could have got divorced and got cleaned out. You know, a 19-year-old guy that's homeless, he could have, Who knows? He could have got kicked out the house because he was, he had a criminal record and he didn't straighten up and he got kicked. It was like, okay, you think you're tough? Get out of here.
Or his parents are just really conservative and he was just smoking weed and he got kicked out for that.
Right. Like, there's so many reasons why a younger kid would be homeless than an older guy. It's two worlds away almost. So it really depends on the person and their age and even their gender, really. Because a homeless woman is different than a homeless man, than a homeless kid. Like, everything is different.
Yep. No, that's those are great points. I just find, like, I just wish that, like, nobody could be homeless, like, no matter what, and that everybody, like, could have enough food to eat and all that. And I just, like, sometimes I wonder if it's just so hard, and because I only know Halifax too, and I mean, I live in a nice apartment building too, but I grew up on Victory Lane in those little townhouses, so I was right by the towers too, right? So I just wish, I just find it just sucks. The people are poor, So
I mean, there was a time like right around 2000. 1999, 2000,
right,
where I moved. I was engaged, and it didn't work out, so I had to move out of her place.
Oh,
big mistake. I should have been in my place, and I wouldn't have to move out. So I had to find. I had a studio downtown in the Khyber, which was my recording studio, and I was there for a good year, like saving up pennies to go buy a slice of pizza, and I had a roommate there and stuff. So I wasn't homeless, but I was really, really poor at one point.
Yeah.
And selling beats was my only income for a year.
Yeah.
And so it was rough. There was a lot of good things that happened out of that. And, but I do remember, and that was also a mistake that came on my part where I should have just built myself to the point where I could be self-sustaining, but I was living with somebody that we were going to get married, and it didn't happen, and then I'm not prepared for that, and just like, oh fuck, where do I go?
Yeah, and of course, right, one would go into those things, with an thinking it is going to work out, so you wouldn't have had to worry about it being her place and all that.
So, being that I was in that position, it's kind of hard to judge somebody else's position because I know my reason was completely different from everybody else's reason.
Yep.
So I don't really make the call of, why this person is homeless or that person is homeless.
Yeah.
It would be nice if nobody was.
That's where I'm getting at. Like, not that, these bad reasons or their fuck ups or anything. I mean, maybe the odd time, but I mean, it's just the fact that it exists, to see that the struggle is so hard for so many people.
Yeah. And when you go to the cafe, you see that every day.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, even me, like, I live on a pretty skinny income most of the time. And I was like, I've been lucky with a couple of grants here and there, but it's not, it's not the real, like,
not the life that you like envisioned.
Yeah. I haven't gotten a $30,000 grant yet.
Right.
But have you gone the grant route at all, or?
I've got grants through other people, and I actually signed a bad publishing deal before in Halifax.
Okay.
And they used to get grants under my name.
Oh, shit, and they were using yours?
They were using my name because I had a publishing deal with them. And the money was supposed to go towards putting out her stuff, but they spent it all.
On, like, whatever, like, they never justified.
On bullshit expenses.
Themselves.
When I wanted out of the deal, they gave me a list of where all that money went. And it's like, that time we took you out for dinner, that came out of here. And I'm like, but you didn't tell me.
Right.
It was surprise costs just to get them out. So that was a valuable lesson too. But yeah. So they kind of blacklisted me from getting grants because they used my name and they messed it up.
Fuck. Yeah, I almost had a situation go like that because somebody was so late. I thought that was going to, like, ruin me for grants forever.
Yeah.
So I'm not as mad at him as I was because it didn't ruin me for grants forever. So it's cool. You didn't ruin my life. So
what I do now is I can't what I do nowadays. I can't get a Nova Scotia grant for anyways. I remix other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Big major artists. I close my eyes and I throw it out there and I cross my fingers like, please do not send me a cease and desist order.
Right.
Because basically, it's not bootlegging. Bootlegging is just taking somebody else's work and putting it out.
You're putting your own spin on it.
I'm putting my own spin on it.
Yeah.
So some of those artists found out I was doing it and they were like, wow, that was a really good job.
Yeah.
And they didn't come after me. They were just, they get it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and this has all been a part of hip hop too. Like, so they understand. Like, there's people that put out legendary bootlegs.
Yep.
And legendary edits.
Yep.
That, and I went back to that and I said, well, instead of putting out rappers and something, because I kind of outgrew that, I said, let me put out edits. And really, ever since I've been doing that, that's been self-sustaining.
No, okay. So yeah, you're getting. Is that like those artists aren't paying for that, but people are buying those remixes?
Those people are buying remixes. Most of my my buying audience right now is in the UK.
Right, I was going to ask about that.
In the UK, on the east coast of the United States, Los Angeles, Germany, and Japan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're like you in World War II, you'd be considered an enemy almost, selling to the Axis.
Well, good thing we're not in a world war.
Yeah, not yet. No,
Yeah,
fuck.
not yet.
So dismal. Yeah, no, but so okay, so so doing those remixes, and I saw like a lot of, because I was going through your Discogs and stuff, and a lot of shit being under your name being released in the UK. Is that how DJ Jazzy Jeff found out about your stuff?
Jeff found out about my stuff from Scratch Bastard because we both opened up for Jeff.
Oh, okay.
At a club downtown when the first time he came. I don't remember what year that was. I want to say it was around 2005.
Oh, that late. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's like something like that. And I've been a fan of Jeff's since 1986.
Right.
I bought his first record then, so I knew of him and all that stuff. And Scratch Bastard, Paul, is a good friend of mine, so we did the show opening for him, and we got to meet him. Paul's a really good DJ. Okay.
Right.
When I took a hiatus from DJing because when I was engaged, I became rusty because I was leaving that behind. So when the marriage thing didn't work out and I came back to DJing, I met Paul. He was 16 years old. I was 30.
Right.
And he was a battle DJ, so I went to battle him. I said, let me show this guy something. And he was so good, I just went over to the trophy and like, give me this trophy. And I handed it to him, and it's like, we don't even need to battle. I'm going to tell you right now, you beat me.
Yeah.
So that's how I met Paul, right?
Yeah, wow.
So that show, Paul was an incredible DJ, and he wowed Jeff just from his performance. So they stayed in touch, and they did shows together. And I always gave my remixes to Paul.
Yeah.
So eventually it came to the point, maybe 2 years down the road, 2 or 3 years down the road, I get a call from Montreal. My friend Cosmo, I don't know if you've heard, he's Azalea Banks' DJ for a little bit.
Oh, does he come to the cafe sometimes?
No, he actually lived up the street like around 2010. We used to go practice at his place.
Okay.
And he moved, and then he got a job being Azalea Banks' DJ, tour DJ.
Yeah.
So while he was on tour, he calls me from Montreal, and he says, Joe, go to a Jazzy Jeff's website. He just put out a mixtape, and your music is on there.
Uh-huh.
And I said, what? And this is like 2 in the morning, so I'm rolling out of bed. Like, okay, what's he talking about? No, this can't be true. He's probably mixing. He's like, oh, that sounds like me, but that's not me.
Right.
So I look at the playlist of all the songs in the order, and it's like, I don't see my name on there. So I go skipping through the playlist.
Yeah.
And as I'm skipping through the playlist, I hear my song on there, but it's not credited to me. So I got angry.
Yep, that would do it.
So I started trying to contact the guy who put the mixtape together, was Mick Boogie. He did that for Jazzy Jeff.
Right.
And I contacted him and I said, this is not a good look, guys. This is not a good look.
No.
You did not ask me permission to put my stuff on there, and you never credited me. So he's just like, whoa, hey, whoa. Jeff did the selection. All I do was put the tape together. And he said, listen, I'll get back to you for a second. Give me your phone number. So he takes my text number down. 10 minutes later, I get a text from Jazzy Jeff. And he's just like, you made that song? And I'm like, who's this? And he's like, Jeff Towns. I'm like, Jazzy Jeff, okay, because I knew his real name. And he's like, yeah, I'm a big fan of your work. So I'm just like, what? So that's kind of how I met him.
Yeah, and is he a good fella, you think? Or?
Oh yeah, he's very good. Yeah.
He seems like it.
He's from the era my favorite era of the '80s, when everybody was pretty much an honest, talented person.
Yep.
You know, non-violent, non-confrontational, just a really good, talented performer, really good, down-to-earth people. He's from that era, so when he contacted me, I could tell it was genuine because he's from that era.
Right. And do you think like that connection of knowing him has been helpful to your career at all? Or?
Oh yeah, it's the first thing that helped my career thing was a label out in the UK. This is before I got in contact with Jeff.
Right.
They heard of me because I was posting stuff online, and I was remaking instrumentals that people wanted, but you couldn't access them. But I would know how to remake the song and take the vocals out. So I did, like, for instance, LL Cool J has a song called Rock the Bells.
Yeah.
There's no instrumental for that because he never released it.
Right.
Sometimes artists would put that on the B side, the instrumental. LL Cool J never did that. And De La Soul for a little while didn't do that either. So at the time, rap karaoke was getting big. And I said, well, geez, like, how cool would that be to have Rock the Bells instrumental? Well, all you need is the AC/DC record. You need the Trouble Funk record for the go-go thing. You need the Cerrone for the scratch thing. And you need an 808 drum machine. That's it. So I remade it in like probably about 4 hours.
Wow.
Because I knew the lyrics off by heart, so I knew where all the drops were, right? I grew up with that song, so I did it on the fly, and I did it. A label out in the UK heard it, and they had this chat board, which was invisible to the public, and they were all talking about, like, who is this Joe guy? Who is this Joe guy? We need to contact him. We need to see what else he got. So this label contacts me. It's like, yeah, we run a label out in the UK, and we want to ask what else you got. We heard that Rock the Bells thing you did. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. I did that a few years ago. I'm on my way out.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm ready to sell my equipment.
Like, I'm done with this shit.
I'm done with this shit.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, no, well, you better wait a minute. Let's see what you got. And I said, well, I have a pretty large cachet of instrumentals. I call them instrumentals you never got.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, really? What do you got? And I send him a few stuff, and he opened up the chat board for me to see what the conversation was. And there was like 150 people there.
Wow.
All in the UK. And there was a big 5-page thing of just, we need to get that Joe Run guy. Wow. And he let me in. He gave me a password, and I was like, wow. I didn't even know this was going on. They're like, you want to put out a record? I'm like, what do you want? And like, okay, well, first of all, we're a little nervous because the world doesn't know who you are, so we could put out a record and it could completely flop. But I think what you're doing needs to be heard, so let's take that chance. We'll put in $2,000, put out a 12-inch, and see what it does. So they did that. They crossed their fingers because it's their own money doing that, and we put out Instrumentals You Never Got Volume 1, and it sold out.
Wow.
Let's do Volume 2.
Yeah.
So they did that, and then from there, everything started to grow. So by the time I was putting out remixes and these instrumentals you never got, Jeff hit me up asking for them as well because he knew from Paul that I was making these. And another person that knew of this but was quiet for a little while, and he was just like, well, let me hear some more stuff. And by the time he did hear it, he was just like, okay, I can't contain myself anymore. And he went on Twitter and he was like, nice. Joe Run is the instrumental king or whatever. And that was Questlove from The Roots.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So then that's when I started to know what was going on because these conversations were going on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Paul.
Behind your back. Yeah,
but Paul was there seeing these conversations and thinking, if Joe only knew. And here I was going, okay, anybody want to buy my turntables? I'm going to sell them for the new low price of, and I was ready to sell my stuff.
Yeah.
Drop off my records at Black Buffalo Records when they first opened up. So they caught me at a time when I was on my way out the door, and they grabbed me back in like, you ain't going nowhere. Yeah. We got some work to do.
Man, isn't that so fortunate, too? Because obviously, I'm sure you wanted success at an earlier age, right?
You know what? the older you get, the less you want it because you don't really care anymore. So it's just that their offers were at a time when me not caring, they surpassed, and they're like, they made it to the pot was sweet enough that I'll be like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Because now money was coming in.
And like you had devoted your whole life to this stuff, right?
I did, but I got to repeat this because people here are like, oh, you're all about money, but you know what? Props don't pay the rent.
No,
Praise
exactly.
don't pay the rent. As soon as money started coming in it, and I can actually make a living off of it, then I was just like, okay, now this is the job I always wanted.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So, because in the 90s there was this movement called Keep It Real. Don't do it for the money, do it for the love. And a lot of people didn't make it because they listened to that.
Yeah.
Love don't pay the rent. Jazzy Jeff doesn't do free shows.
Yeah.
So I was brainwashed into thinking, do it for the love, do it because you love it. Don't ask for money. And I think that ruined a lot of people and made them bitter about not making it because they were doing stuff for free and people took advantage of them.
Yeah, no, I think I mean, it's one thing, like I'm not above, doing a fundraiser for somebody,
right,
or an open mic to try new shit,
right,
that I never did before,
right,
but, to see how it is, but I mean...
But if people control whether or not you make money, that's not good.
And oftentimes, them people are making money off it.
Exactly.
Right? So that is greasy as fuck, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And
like, for instance, at the cafe, I'll do a free show for Chris because I know
he's
Chris.
Struggling, right?
But if somebody saw me doing a free show there and like, oh, yeah, you're at the cafe, can you do a free show for at our cafe? No, I'm going to give you the standard price that I charge.
Yeah.
And believe me, it's a little bit more than you can handle.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, Classified, he just bought a house with the money he's made off of music.
Right.
I should have been in that mentality, but I didn't because I was, you got to be the nice guy, got to do the free stuff.
Yeah.
And
but do you think that could still come for you at this point, like buying a house, maybe in 5 years' time or something?
That's hard because I take a day at a time.
Right. You can't say, obviously, for sure, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean...
You can't, I don't like to jinx myself either.
No, that's it. Yeah, knock on the real wood here for that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And
but it's important that if you want to make this a career, make it a career.
Yeah.
Meaning that, you are in control whether or not you can pay your rent because you chose this lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean...
You could still love it, but just don't,
No, and there's some things, too, about just, you really can't get a break, and, some people... that probably really do deserve it, just can't have success for whatever political reasons, or they can't,
right.
Like that does happen, and obviously I'm sure some, just aren't good enough,
Right, but at the same time, at the cafe, there's a thing that I do with Chris where we do the Grickolites.
Yeah.
That's me using my resources to give back to the community that I'm playing with.
Yeah.
If you're not part of that community, then there's nothing I can do about that. But I help Chris out. Chris is going to have his record out next year, early next year, which I help produce, which is all ex-band members from other,
local Halifax
guys that are part of their old bands or branched off from the bands. But it's all people that come into the cafe for a coffee, hang out for a second, and it's like, let's just record something. Not bring your whole band in. I want you as the drummer.
Yeah.
I want this guy because he plays bass because he's here every day at the cafe. We're cool. Let's get this guy. He plays congas. Let's let Chris and me record it. Chris gives his input or whatever, and let's record like a 15-song thing. Let's put it out on Black Buffalo Records.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's true, street neighborhood music.
And that's exactly it. And for that, I don't ask for no money off of that. That's an example of something that I said I want to be part of, and I'll do it because I love doing it. But nobody suggested that to me.
No, that was your choice.
I was in the feeling. Yeah. I had the fever to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I was just curious, I guess, if there is an overall goal to your music or artistically that you're trying to achieve, is there something there?
I don't know about goal. I mean, I take every project one at a time. I do more remixes of songs that I get the original reel to reels to.
Right.
So I get to strip the song down, see how it was made, and go, wow, okay. I always wanted to hear this song without the violins.
Yeah.
It would be really nice if we just had the singer just sing over the drums, take all the bass guitar, the horns, everything out. And people like hearing something familiar above all. But if they hear it differently, but it's still familiar, people eat it up.
Yeah, no, that's they still recognize it, and
they still recognize them, and they're just like, "Whoa, I never heard this version of the song."
Yeah, I never heard like this
there's
before.
a market for that because those artists are actually the DJs that play those songs. It goes right back to the beginning of hip hop, where DJs used to soak their labels, right? Because if you had a hot record that you found, a jazz record that had a really great drum solo, you don't want your competition to know what it is. So back in the days, they used to put the records in the bathtub, soak the labels off, and then go to the party. So if somebody's looking over your shoulders like, what's that? I want to play that at my party. The label's soaked off. It's like, damn, I could only hear it at this guy's party. And he's like, you want to hear this record again? You come next week. I'll be at the Armories or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So going back to today, what I do is kind of like that, except we're in the age of Serato where you could download somebody else's entire set and take over their show and have all the records. But if I'm the one supplying the different version of the song, bet you don't have this version, Walk This Way, Aerosmith, no electric guitars, just him singing over the drums. You're like, whoa, this actually sounds better without the guitars. And like, let me look online to download this. Oh, I can't download this.
Yeah.
They got to go right to Joe. And what does Joe do? It's like, you got to talk to that DJ. If he wants to give it to you, cool. But chances are he's not going to.
Yeah.
You got to go to his party to hear it. So I'm bringing back that early element where DJs have exclusive stuff, because that's how you separate somebody that can just buy a little bit of equipment, $100 of equipment, and download all his music, the same version of the song that everybody else has. And the only way you're going to stand out is if you have a different version of everything.
Yeah, I love how you're going like so deep into the reconstruction of them, like completely stripping them down and put like completely rebuilding the song almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's like, you know, like remix from like the bare bones. That's awesome. And
right.
Like I was listening to your Discogs before doing this just to hear some different songs, and a lot of the remix did come up. One was a James Brown, Funky Drummer,
yeah,
and one was a Biz Markie song that I heard.
Oh, right, yeah. Nobody beats a Biz.
Right, that's right. Yep. Yeah. And so I didn't like, and I was just those two, and I was like listening to some other songs too, and I'm clearly like not like I appreciate and enjoy music, but I know nothing from a composition standpoint and have no understanding that way.
Right.
So, but it seemed to me like you were trying to like bring out more positivity to them and even like maybe make them more danceable. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing, because I don't know if you get the context, but some of those songs, the beats sound dated because they were done in the 80s.
Right.
I gave them a 10-year leap ahead by making the music a little more updated, but leaving the original vocals as they are.
Right.
Because, some songs, they sound really dated. It's like, that's a really good song, but I can't play that in a club because the drums are so 1980s. I don't think people are going to get this. But what I do is I strip it down. It's like, well, let me put today's type of kick and snare behind it. Give it so when you play, you know the song, the familiarity part is covered,
get the recognition,
but you get the today thump through the speaker, and you're like, I don't remember it sounding this good. What did he do to this?
Okay, so but is that goal, at least in part, more to get people dancing than what?
It is to get people dancing. There's an artistic sense to it where you can listen to it at home and appreciate what I've done with it and hear the little nuances and stuff that you wouldn't hear on a loud system.
Right.
But for the most part, it is for DJs to dance, like to get people to dance. Not so much people in Halifax, because we sell very little of what we do in Halifax. They all sell out overseas.
Right. No, but like when I was hearing you, that's like I was like, oh yeah, right, like moving around and stuff, right?
Yeah,
So I was like, I don't think like I don't know music from a composition standpoint, but I feel like I'm intuitive enough that that's got to be at least part of the goal, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, just before I finish up here, I was going to ask, is there anything you'd like to add to anything we were talking about, or?
Nothing that I could really think of.
I feel like we were pretty thorough.
Yeah, we're pretty thorough.
Yeah. Yep. And forgive me because I ask everybody, and I didn't tell you before we started. This is a kind of a general question that I ask everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the meaning of life is?
Damn, you went there. Huh?
Yeah. And if you don't have one offhand, that's cool.
I'm going to leave it with one quote.
Sweet.
And the quote is from the title of the album Common Sense or Common put out, and the title of his album was called One Day It'll All Make Sense.
Yep.
And that's all the only answer I can give you.
No, and I dig it, and I dig. I've learned that the meaning of life is that you should probably tell people you're going to ask them what the meaning of life is before you do.
Yeah.
That's my meaning of life. I want to thank you so much for being on here, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
I think this was a great show.
Awesome.
Folks, he's been Jorun Bombay, and I've been Josh Dunn. Oh, is there anything that they should, any new things coming out that they should pick up right now?
You know what? In Halifax, it's kind of hard to get my stuff.
Can they order it online though?
They can order online.
Where should folks order online to buy Joe?
It just depends on who puts it out because there's 5 different labels and they all have 5 different websites.
Okay.
So that's a really hard call. The best way to find out is to go on Instagram and find me because I keep people up to date on Instagram way more than Facebook. Facebook has become a political thing, mixed with selfies and all that stuff. So the music thing doesn't work there. Instagram is kind of my new platform. There's no politics, there's no bullshit, it's just music. So find me on Instagram. Oh, you can even come to the cafe because Brickolites is going to be coming out. And Chris still sells some records there, so that's definitely going to be there. Get a coffee while you're there.
Come to Cafe Saint Paul, folks. Go see Jorun Bombay on his Instagram. That's Jorun and then Bombay.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks again, Joe, for being on here.
Cool.
All right. Folks, he's been Jorun Bombay. I've been Josh Dunn. Remember, especially when you're feeling down, look at yourself in the mirror, give yourself that Ric Flair. Woo! Because you are the greatest of all time. I know I am. Good night.